My wife is nuttier than squirrel turds. Yes. So last time we spoke about how we need to rest, we need to recover, right? And obviously for our fitness goals and our overall health goals. And so that makes sense, especially when you're training so hard, you want to build big, strong muscles. But let's talk about this a little bit further because so many of us are not recovering how we ought to, right? You may have heard the term doom scrolling. So many people want to just escape. They want to numb their brain, right? They want to watch a movie. They just want to sit and they doom scroll. They scroll on Facebook or TikTok or whatever social media is out these days. And I'm not anti, saying don't ever do that. But when you do that, of course, just as well as I do, you're wasting time, right? And that's what I want to talk about today is we want to take time for ourselves, but we do not want to waste our time, right? Because what is that productive? Are you productively recovering or are you just mind numbing yourself? And there's a major, major difference. So an active recovery would be stimulating your mind in a different way than what you do at work, right? So reading a book, reading a nice article, having a deep, meaningful conversation, those are brain stimulating, allowing you to fully recover. Doing an activity that you really enjoy. So say you enjoy quilting or knitting or something to that effect, or baking. Let's use baking for example. Then you need to take time and do that because you enjoy it. I really enjoy playing basketball with a group of guys. It gets me physically active and moving, and I feel so much better after I do that activity. So the best way to gauge your level of recovery, so to speak, or your recovery activity is, do you feel better? And I'll propose this question to you. When you doom scroll, as they say, do you feel better? Or do you feel like disoriented and maybe not feel so good to your stomach, maybe even give yourself a headache if you do it for a long duration? So that would be a notion to say, yeah, that's not actually productive in my recovery that I'm trying to achieve. I need to take time for myself, but not waste the time. So, okay, let's use this for example. Last night, Ella and I, we went to Derby dinner and we had a blast. It was The Little Mermaid. It was a cute story. They did an amazing job. So, and we laughed so hard. So on the way, because it's about an hour drive, and so often when we're in the car together and we don't have our kids around, because we work together, we often do what we shouldn't do is we talk about work, right? Talk about things that could be stressful, like, okay, we need to deal with this issue, and okay, now how are we going to market here, and what's the next spinal screening that we're going to do, blah, 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 right? There is a time and place for Elle and I to have, business partnership meetings, but on date night, that probably is not appropriate, right? Of course, most of you agree with that. So I was like, well, what are we going to talk about, going to this date, right? Are we going to talk? We can't talk about work, and we just dropped the kids off at Nan and Papa's house. So let's not talk about the kids because we always talk about the kids. And they're wild and crazy. If you wanted to know, they are our kids, so they represent us. So I asked Ellen this question on the drive. I said, hey, crazy question. What type of animal would you be? Land, air, sea, you name it. What type of animal would you be if you could be any animal in the world? My wife, I did not expect this. She gave me the answer of a squirrel. So that goes fitting. She's nuttier than squirrel turds. So, no, she said a squirrel, but the why was really interesting. She wants to be strong and fierce, right? Like, don't mess with me if she has to be, but she doesn't need to be. Like, she can live off of nuts and acorns and things like that. So she doesn't have to go out and kill anything or have to be mean, but she can if she needs to be. She wants to be able to climb the tree and see everything, see the world, all the things. But this was interesting. She wants to be cute. Squirrels are cute, apparently. So that was her reasoning. And I thought it was when I thought about it as we were driving, I thought, wow, that really fits. Of course, she is cute. Um, but she is strong. She's a very strong, independent woman, and she wants to, be able to, gather her nuts and be to herself. A little bit of an introvert, but she also wants to be able to climb the mountain or climb the tree and achieve, right? Obviously, with her new ambition, or well, it's not a new ambition, but now that we're able to embark on it, the Salem, Indiana Massage Academy that we're developing is going to be huge. And so it just was so fitting, right? Now, the next question I asked her was, okay, out of all the movies, I was thinking Disney movies, Lion King, Aladdin, Little Mermaid. What's your favorite childhood movie? And she didn't say a cartoon, and she wasn't really into movies growing up. Going to the movie theater was a luxury for her, she said. They didn't do that very often. So what she told me was that there's a movie series, I'm not familiar with it, but the Princess Diaries, excuse me. And so she watched those movies over and over and over and over, right? She was addicted to those. And she liked them so much because, and this is what I gathered, is that she could see herself in those stories, right? It was a little country girl who wore blue jeans and t-shirts, didn't come from much, but all of a sudden she discovered that she was an heir to the kingdom because her grandma was apparently the queen. Really cool story how she told it. And then she said, and if you want, we can watch those movies too. I was like, okay, we will. But she could see herself in that. She's a normal, average, country girl, but she is ambitious, right? And so with these questions, I was able to discover a lot about my wife, that she is nuttier than squirrel turds. No, but it was a deep, meaningful conversation, and it was a nice evening. We didn't talk about work, we didn't talk about kids, we just enjoyed each other, and it was quite nice. So, with you guys, let's recover. Let's not waste time. Now, I do have one little story talking about weight loss or building muscle and working out, all good things. So let's talk about this. There was an older lady who was behind us in line going into to get our seats, and there's a little backdrop, derby dinner backdrop, and I said, "Hey, can you take our picture? I want to take a picture with my beautiful wife." And she said, "Oh, that's so sweet, blah, blah, blah." So she takes my picture, and then we're looking at the picture as we're sitting and we're eating. And Ellen is so funny. She said, she said, make my stomach flatter or whatever, using AI. I was like, okay. So me being a smart aleck, I said, on the description for AI, I said, okay, make female flattened belly, whatever. But then I said, and make the guy's arms, in all caps, a lot bigger. And so it spit out this image of my arms just being completely ginormous, like what a bodybuilder would look like. And I looked at that picture. Now, I'm looking at the picture, and of course, that would be really hard to achieve. But I looked and said, "Oh, I would really like to look like that." And then when you look at the picture of me with the big arms, and then when I flip back to the other picture, I was like, oh man, I really wish I looked like that, because I could see my face with these giant arms. So anyway, so what I need to do is work on my rest and recovery, so then my workouts go much further. So that's my goal. That's my ambition. And so I hope that was helpful for you guys. I love you guys. And have these deep, meaningful conversations. Let's take time, but not waste time. So I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.